In basketball, the ability to apply force efficiently and repeatedly is important, as it positively impacts players' ability to sprint, accelerate, jump, change direction, and execute sport-specific skills. The article, published in the Strength and Conditioning Journal, titled An Integrative Approach to Strength and Neuromuscular Power Training for Basketball by Schelling and Torres-Ronda, put forward a training methodology for developing and progressing a strength and power program, which is based on the degree of similarity in relation to actual basketball, referred to as task orientation, and their associated approaching levels. The orientations include general, directed, special, and competitive orientation. This presentation, brought to you by Talking Sports Science, will be a summary of the recommendations for the 4 orientations and the 7 approaching levels. General orientation includes level -0, level +0, and level 1. As the name suggests, this orientation targets players' general goals in relation to body composition, maximal strength, strength endurance, neuromuscular power, and specific injury prevention strategies. Here, any training modality can be used to achieve the desired goal without considering basketball-specific movement patterns. At level -0, decision-making does not exist, and the exercises selected have no direct transfer to basketball-specific movement patterns. The focus is on the secondary stabilizing muscles required in the main basketball movements. Strength endurance is appropriate during this level, and depending on the goal, basic balance, activation, and dynamic flexibility are common capacities developed here. Injury prevention exercises can be categorized as compensatory or complementary. Compensatory exercises address asymmetries and imbalances and involve muscle groups not included in the main exercises of the workout, whereas complementary exercises refers to strengthening specific muscles through single joint exercises. In level +0, decision-making does not exist or is simple and unspecific. Exercises are not related to basketball-specific movement patterns, and the intensity is higher than in the previous level, and is associated with traditional resistance training, such as squats or bench press, and also multi-joint exercises with non-basketball-specific ranges of movement or velocity, for example, push-up variations. However, strength gains in these exercises can be transferred to more specific exercises or performance skills later on. Moving on to level 1, again decision-making does not exist or is simple and unspecific. Exercises selected now will bear some relation to basketball stances and therefore allow a greater transfer to performance. Explosive strength training through the use of ballistic, plyometric, and weightlifting exercises are recommended. The use of inertial technology, which accentuates the eccentric muscular contraction, such as flywheels, have also been recommended to help prevent injury. Moving on to directed orientation, which includes level 2 and level 3, and involves exercises that now closely relate to actual basketball and requires all-out efforts. Level 2 is more physical capacity dependent. Here, exercises should replicate basketball-specific movement patterns and skills, but be overloaded or ballasted. Repeated high-intensity efforts, speed and agility, ballistic and plyometric training are recommended, and it is advised to use a variety of methods rather than solely relying on one form. Elastic bands and overloaded vest or med balls can be used at this level. Depending on playing position needs, this type of work can be performed on court, adding body contacts, various unilateral and bilateral jumps and landings, straight accelerations, and repeated changes of direction with or without basketball-specific movements. Quality is preferred over quantity, and an example session is performing 6 dunks from low post with a medicine ball weighing between 3 to 5 kilograms, repeated 3 times. To improve blocking or positioning, sprinting and change of direction efficiency, good balance from lowered body center of mass is key and can be corrected during these workouts. Compared to level 2, level 3 is more motor skill dependent and is aimed at basketball specific technical skill development that takes place on court. The sports coaches will direct these skill development sessions. Decision making at this level is simple and basketball based or does not exist. An example task is posting up to improve balance and spin through lowered centre of mass. As training in this level is specific, it enhances performance but potentially increases imbalances. Therefore, injury prevention work remains essential at this level. Moving on to special orientation, sessions at level 4 typically take place on court, in the form of small-sided games aimed at improving game performance, where decision-making is complex and basketball specific. Small-sided game formats include 2v2, 3v3, and various unevenly sided games, for example 4v3. These sessions are typically delivered again by the sports coaches. However, the skill and fitness level, number of players, court dimensions, game rules, work to rest ratios, and player encouragement needs to be carefully considered, as these factors can be modified to manipulate the overall physiological and perceptual workload. As players simultaneously develop technical and tactical skills under high physical loads, these sessions have a high degree of training transfer, and players are typically more motivated when performing sport-specific sessions compared to traditional S&C sessions. A session example at level 4 is performing 3 minutes of 3v3 using a half court with mainly low post situations, and repeating this 4 times. And last but not least, the competitive orientation, which is level 5 and involves the most realistic, cognitive, physical and physiological requirements, and therefore is the most specific skill-based S&C session. The decision-making is complex and basketball specific, and exercises are based on 4v4, 5v5, or 5v4, or 5v3. The value of involving a larger number of players than in small-sided games lies in enhancing team-specific decision-making skills, as more teammates and opponents are involved in the decision-making processes. At this level, basketball players must be better at playing basketball. The design of exercises at this level should follow the considerations regarding small-sided games mentioned at level 4. However, only training at level 4s and 5 could be risky, because the tasks are open in nature. It does not allow for an accurate control of training stimulus. Some players might not receive enough physical stimuli, therefore losing fitness, especially players who play fewer minutes over the season, whereas other players might accentuate already existing imbalances. A session example at level 5 is performing a 5v5 game for 2 to 4 minutes with mainly low post situations, followed by a 2 to 4 minute rest, which is then repeated 4 to 6 times. At this level, it is typical to use game incentives such as points or to modify rules. And that completes the recommendations for each of the 4 orientations and associated levels. From a periodization perspective, during pre-season, injury prevention and workload compensation should be a priority and carried out at levels -0 and +0. In addition, pre-seasons should also develop levels 1, 2 and 3 and be adapted based on the individual and team needs. As pre-season progresses, level 1 should be reduced, while small-sided games and actual basketball, i.e. levels 4 and 5, should now begin to be interspersed and incorporated more into training. However, depending on the team characteristics, the competition calendar, and the needs of the players, it will not always be necessary to complete levels 1 or 2. During the competitive season, small-sided games and actual basketball will predominate. However, a workout based on levels -0, 2 and 3 is recommended to be performed at least every 7 to 10 days to compensate for the high specificity of games, which ultimately carries a greater injury risk. It is important to adapt different weekly strength training schedules to the number of games per week. For example, is it 1, 2 or 3 games per week, or back-to-back games? During longer microcycles, for example 1 game per week, players may be able to perform general workouts, for example level +0 and level 1, more frequently if needed. During the off-season, the aim can be to improve general and maximal strength and maximal power, while also addressing any muscular imbalances and asymmetries to help reduce injury risk. It is recommended that S&C programs are not just based on the competitive calendar, but also the individual needs of the players according to their biological maturation, strengths and weaknesses, and where they are at in their career. And that concludes this presentation. As always, check out the full article for lots more nuggets of information. The link is in the description. Thanks for listening, folks. See you next time.